All right, let's get on to our regular briefing here today. We're going to go to the Bering Sea, where Russia is putting on quite a show right now. This is a multi-week naval exercise called Fiscal 2023, happening in the Bering Sea, the Bering Strait, and the Chukchi Sea just north of Siberia there. So all around that peninsula, very near Alaska. We're going to begin in the south in the Bering Sea, working our way north so you can follow along at home. There's two big ships and one large submarine operating in the Bering Sea. We have the Marshal Shapashinikov, the Varyag CG, and Tomsk SSGN, which is an Oscar class, and we'll break each one of these three vessels down for you, starting with the flagship of the Russian Pacific Fleet, the RFS Varyag. This is a Slava-class cruiser, very large ship. It is a 12,500-ton cruiser whose engine room is configured in a combined gas turbine and gas turbine, co-gag propulsion. It has 4 gas turbines that turn 2 shafts for a total speed of 32 knots. Its armament is extensive. On the bow, they have an AK-130 cannon that can reach out to 12 nautical miles. Right behind that are a number of Sandbox supersonic cruise missiles that can reach out to 378 nautical miles. Amidships there in the flat area, that's where the S-300 Fort Grumbles are stowed. And that's a 40 nautical mile surface-to-air missile. And right behind that, near the helipad, are 2 Gecko SAMs. Those are the SAN-4s. They are in the collapsed mode now, in the stowed mode, but they rise up. They have twin rails, and they shoot a relatively short range, but high speed, highly accurate too, surface-to-air missile that has about a 5 nautical mile range. Primarily, in my opinion, a point defense weapon. This is the weapon that failed the Slava in the Black Sea, and why she was struck by cruise missiles was when that Gecko failed to operate properly. All right, with them is the RFS Marshal Shapashinikov. This is a modernized Utiloy-class destroyer. She has 2 gas turbines and a co-gag configuration with 2 shafts and pushes it to 32 knots. She, on the bow, has an 8x8 Kinzhal surface-to-air missile system, so a total of 64 total weapons there. She has the A190 100mm gun on the bow. Right behind that bow gun is that flat area. That's where they keep the Caliber cruise missiles in a VLS configuration. They have 16 cells. And right behind that are 2 quad launchers. Those carry the Uran anti-ship cruise missiles. So a lot of weapon systems on the forward part of the ship. And right behind that is the superstructure, the bridge, and the CIC. She's also capable of operating helicopters and can shoot torpedoes too. So a lot of weapons on the modernized Shapashinikov. The submarine that's in the Bering Sea with these 2 ships is an Oscar class. This is a big girl here. This is the Tomsk SSGN. She shoots 24 SSN-19 shipwreck missiles. These are very large, long-range and destructive missiles designed to take out and overwhelm carrier fleet defense in the 1980s, and they still operate that. The missiles have been upgraded too over time. They're actually very good. And she has 6 torpedo tubes on the bow of varying size, 53 centimeter and 65 centimeter. All right, so right now those ships are in the Bering Sea conducting live fire exercises into the Siberian Peninsula there that has a live fire range on it. And because we're watching this exercise happen, we know that the missiles are actually hitting their targets. So there's not a lot of problems with the weapon systems. They're operating as expected. In addition to these sea-launched cruise missiles, they're also launching a number of simulated cruise missiles, which are like aerial drones, that a nearby airfield is launching MiG-31s to go and intercept. And they are successfully intercepting subsonic simulated cruise missiles, little aerial drones essentially flying over the target range. So this MiG-31, there's a couple of them, a pair, intercepting these. This is a long-range, high-altitude, 68,000 feet about, Mach 2.8 fighter. Can go 900 nautical miles without refueling. Obviously, she's refuel capable in the air. She shoots up to 10 different weapons, 10 different air-to-air weapons, a wide variety arsenal here of long-range, medium-range, and short-range air-to-air weapons here. But she also shoots the KH-31 long-range air-to-ground missile. And we've seen this be employed in the Ukraine theater. So she can go up there with what is essentially a ballistic missile strapped to her belly, drop it, and the motor kicks off and it goes towards its destination. And on the nose, she also has a rotary cannon for close-range fighting. Nearby that airfield, putting up those MiG-31s, is a Bastion P coastal defense battery. So this is the K300P Bastion P. The Coastal Defense Batteries shooting the P800 Onyx missile at simulated anchored ships and moving ships too, and she's hitting them too. The missile that comes out of this coastal defense has a wide variety of capability. It could be a 186 nautical mile, relatively short range missile, large warhead, or a very long range, 500 nautical mile variant of the same missile. So it does a lot of different things. There's a lot of different variants of this P800. The warhead typically is a 550-pound warhead, or it can have a penetrator as a warhead as well. The missile's flight characteristics can be high altitude cruise, low altitude cruise, but they all have the option of a sea skimming terminal phase, which is key for striking ships because you want to get below the radar horizon and stay there for as long as possible as you close the target. That's what this missile does. All right, let's move north to the Chukchi Sea. This is where an anti-submarine warfare exercise is going underway, and this is part of fiscal 2023. So as you can see, very large area of operation here. And this takes a lot of coordination, I should mention, and they're doing it successfully. So the Russians right now are really practicing and employing modern naval warfare. This is really impressive to see all this happening at the same time. So up north of Siberia, we have the RFS Grimyashi. She is a 2,500-ton ASW ship, fast ship, in a code DAD configuration, can push her up to 26 knots. She does shoot the Onyx missile. She has 8 of those, and a 12-cell Redoubt surface-to-air missile system. So she's able of defending herself and the fleet around her from incoming aircraft and missiles. Also on the bow, she has the A190 100-millimeter naval gun there, and she can shoot torpedoes as well as put on the helicopter on the back end there. Very capable ship. The Russians put a lot of weapons and capability into small platforms here. This is what they're demonstrating. This is another example of that. RFS Shavashini is a Staraguchi class corvette, only 2,200 tons, relatively small for a warship. She has 4 diesel engines that all run at the same time. So we call that code DAD. Those turn 2 shafts for a total of 26 knots. She can shoot 8 of the year-end anti-ship cruise missiles. And she has a 12-cell Redoubt system. Remember, the Redoubt system is that surface-to-air missile system. It can be long range, can be short range, a whole variety of missiles in there. But she can carry 12 or has 12 cells for those missiles. She also has an A190 100-millimeter gun there on the bow and is helicopter and torpedo capable. And the last ship that's with them in this ASW exercise is an old-fashioned Grisha 3 ASW craft. The specific one is RFS MPK 107. This is a 1,200-ton tugboat with a gun that runs on a code DAG 2 diesel, 1 gas turbine system. So she has 3 shafts, right, with 3 propellers. 2 of the shafts each have their own diesel, and the centerline one has a gas turbine. And when they turn that thing on, they can go up to 30 knots really fast. And on the bow there in the white box is a retracted in the stowed position, a twin rail launcher. This is the SAN-4 Gecko with that 5 nautical mile range. The same basically point defense surface-to-air missile that the Slava class has is on the bow of this thing. She just has 1 though. The magazine for this is 20 missiles, twin rail launcher, can reload 10 times before she's Winchester. Behind that in the red box are 2 RBU 6000s. Those are essentially depth charges for the modern era. The 6000 refers to its maximum range, 6,000 meters, and goes down to either a pre-programmed depth before detonating, but she can be fused for impact and magnetic detection. So they don't actually have to hit a submarine. If they get close to a submarine, these things will explode trying to damage it. Back on the aft end of the ship is a twin barrel AK-725 57-millimeter cannon, and she's also mine and torpedo capable. So 3 different kinds of ships up north doing ASW work. Overhead of these ships is a very old school, but still in service, IL-38. This is essentially a Soviet copy of our P-3 Orion. This is the P-3 Ski, we used to call this when I was in. This picture is from 1979 when they thought it'd be funny to fly over one of our carrier air groups, action groups. The primary sensor on this is that long needle thing that you see sticking out the rear end. It goes into the superstructure as well. That's a magnetic anomaly detector, and that detects a fluctuation in the Earth's magnetic field as it flies over a submerged metallic object like a submarine. And so they can detect submarines with that. They also employ sonar buoys and can drop torpedoes from the IL-38. So Old school plane, but very reliable. And, we still use our P3s in the U.S. Navy too. All right, so this is what fiscal 2023 looks like. This exercise has been going on for over a week now. There is no end date, so it's just going to end suddenly. But this is a scheduled, pre-announced military operation or exercise, technically, happening in international waters. So there's no protest. It's being observed by the United States Navy and our Coast Guard. And this is a very professional exercise. One, they're performing well. I have to give credit to the Russians for organizing a rather large area of naval operations that appear to be working. Well, there's no real incidents. No one's being towed home. There's no one breaking down like I would expect. And it's well organized. So kudos to them. And it's also a good intel opportunity for all of us that I'm sure we're taking full advantage of. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I just wanted to share with our longtime viewers that we did lose our studio doggo this weekend. She died peacefully in our family room, surrounded by me, my wife, and lots of love. And so sadly, Bianca is no longer with us, but she is well documented and will always have a place here in the studio on the wall. And thanks for all the kind words. For Bianca.